3, 2, 1.
Silakan, Diva.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Good morning, all distinguished guests and participants. Allow me to extend my warmest welcome to everyone. My name is Diva, and it is my pleasure to serve as the Master of Ceremony of today's event. Welcome to the seminar with the theme, Transformational Leadership, How to Deliver Big Fast Results. As a reminder of our shared spirit of nationalism, let us listen to the national anthem, Indonesia Raya.
Indonesia, tanah airku, tanah tumpah darahku. Di sanalah aku berdiri, jadi pandu ibuku.
Indonesia, kebangsaanku, bangsa dan tanah airku. Marilah kita bersama, Indonesia bersatu. Hiduplah tanahku, hiduplah negeriku, bangsaku, rakyatku semua. Bangunlah jiwanya, bangunlah badannya, untuk Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang tercinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, tanahku, negeriku yang tercinta. Indonesia Raya, merdeka, merdeka, hiduplah Indonesia Raya.
Before we proceed, let us pray for the success of this event, which will be led by Bapak Rohyat. To Pak Rohyat, the time is yours.
Thank you, Ms. Diva. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Please allow us to lead this prayer with flag speaking. For those of other beliefs, we invite you to pray according to their respective religion. Let us bow our hearts together, ask for forgiveness, while hoping that our prayer will be accepted by Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alamin, hamdan syakirin, hamdan na'imin, hamdan yuafi ni'amahu wa yukafihu madidah. Ya Rabbana lakal hamdu kama yanbaghi li jalali wajhikal karimi wa azimi sultan. Ya Allah, we thank you because today you have allowed us to gather to take part in the opening ceremony for this webinar activity. Ya Allah, please forgive our sins and mistakes and accept our deeds of worship. Ya Allah, please give us goodness, health, strength, safety, and convenience while we participate in this webinar. Rabbana la tuzigh qulubana ba'da idh hadaitana wa hab lana min ladunka rahmah innaka antal wahhab. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah wa fil akhirati hasanah wa qina adzabannar. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun. Wassalamun alal mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Rohyat. Distinguished guests, His Excellency Datuk Sri Idris Jalla, former minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia from 2010 until 2017, and the chairman of Pemandu Associates. The Honorable Head of Human Resources Development Agency of Energy and Mineral Resources, Bapak Prahoro Nur Cahyo. Secretary of Downstream Oil and Gas Regulatory Agency, Bapak Patuan Alphonse Simanjuntak, Head of the Human Resources Development Center, Bapak Bambang Utoro, high-level leaders within the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, our moderator who will be leading the discussion in this session, Bapak Eric Hutrindo, and all honored guests, participants joining through Zoom and YouTube. To officially begin the seminar, we respectfully invite the Head of Human Resources Development Agency, Bapak Prahoro Nurcahyo, to deliver his opening remarks. To Pak Prahoro, the floor is yours.
Well, thank you, Mbak Diva. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, His Excellency Datuk Seri Idris Jalla, former Minister in the Prime Minister's Department of Malaysia, in the period of 2010 and 2017, and also right now the chairman of Pemandu Associates, esteemed senior and middle officials of the Human Resources Development Center of Energy and Mineral Resources, and also our colleague from other units that are joining us with for this seminar today. Ladies and gentlemen, participants of this seminar, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Alhamdulillah, in the name of Allah, the most gracious, the most merciful, all praise is due to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, the most gracious and the most merciful. I think that's good opportunity for us gathering here during this webinar today with the theme that we brought here, that I'm bringing here is with the theme of transformational leaderships, how to deliver big, fast results. I think this is the keyword is big, fast. The result is harder to deliver this one. I think this is for today's, we are very, very lucky that we have Datuk Sri Idris Jalla that joined with us today, bring us this the keyword things need to be big, perform here later on. Yeah. So Dato, thank you so much for sharing with us all this information. So probably the key and also the trick and tips, takeaways that we need to bring it home after this event. I think I mentioned with the Dato earlier this morning before we start with this meeting. I think this is there are two criteria that we are looking for. There are many CEOs around the world that can become the best CEOs in the industries in professional ways, but there are less CEOs that also have ever joined the government to be the public servants, to be the officers in the government. I think this is a very rare, and knowing that the Dato has been in the industry for 23 years. Later on, Dato, we can share what's your experience, 23 years with sales, and then later on become the minister in the government in Malaysia for 7 years, and then later on now try to share the experiences with others. I think this is good opportunity. So Dato, we all need to get a new view from your side, talking about how to become the effective policymakers and how to be exemplary provided for public services. As we know, now the era is different, Dato, back in the probably 10 years ago compared with what we have today. So now everyone is very, very keen, try to see what needs to be done, and the social media is also very, very different compared with back in our days. They cannot accept any mistakes for the public figure. So I think this is another challenge that we will have later on. So Dato, I think we thought further ado, hopefully this webinar can give the constructive forum for discussions and also providing the valuable insights to organizations while they carrying out the duties. So hopefully we can have everything that what we have today is going to be beneficial for all of us for those one who also listening, and later on, if this is also shared with public, whether in YouTube or others, they can repeat it again. This video, just try to learn what we have discussed today. So I hereby declare the seminar of the Transformational Leadership, how to deliver big, fast results, officially open. May this event run smooth and bring the great benefit to us all. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Pak Prahoro, for your encouraging opening remarks. Your perspective is a valuable reminder to continue to drive our mission forward. As global dynamics shift and innovation accelerates, leadership that can adapt, inspire, and transform has never been more vital. Through today's seminar, we will explore how transformational leadership can foster innovation, strengthen sustainability, and reinforce the essential role of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources in driving Indonesia's national development. Before we begin the session, I am honored to introduce our moderator, Bapak Eric Hutrindo. Bapak Eric is the coordinator of the Working Group on Strategic Policy Analysis and Studies at the Policy Strategy Center of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. He holds a doctorate in mechanical engineering from Institut Teknologi Bandung. Pak Eric has dedicated his work under the ministry for 2 decades, contributing significantly to policy development and strategic analysis within the energy sector. He also serves as an instructor or Widya Iswara in various training programs related to energy policy and energy systems analysis. Pak Eric will guide us through the discussion and Q&A session. I now hand over the floor to Pak Eric.
Well, thank you, Diva, Master of Ceremony. A very good morning to distinguished leaders, ladies and gentlemen of the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Salam sejahtera untuk kita semua. I am honored to be your moderator for this very special session this morning. Today, we have an extraordinary privilege. We are about to learn directly from a world-class transformation guru, Dato Sri Idris Jalla. It is a distinct honor and pleasure to welcome you to our session. Dato, good morning.
Morning.
Thank you so much for your time. It is wonderful to have you with the big family of Ministry Energy and Mineral Resources today. How are you doing, Dato?
I'm doing very well.
That's excellent. We are certainly looking forward to the insight that you will be sharing with us today. Currently, Dato in Kuala Lumpur, right?
Yes, I'm in Kuala Lumpur.
Yeah. We discussed that before the session that the weather condition more or less same with Jakarta. I am currently in Yogyakarta, Dato, and the weather here is absolutely beautiful. And we are honored to have a truly diverse audience join us today, tuning in from major Indonesian cities such as Jakarta, Bandung, Yogyakarta, and perhaps some of volcano observers. They joining us from their volcanic monitoring posts across the archipelago in Indonesia. So I think the participants from a lot of area in Indonesia. Dato, before we begin, I would like to take a brief moment to properly introduce our special distinguished speakers, Dato. And with your kind permission, I will now read your short bio, even though this is actually not short, but please, I will make it shorter. Dato Sri Idris Jalla is a world-renowned transformation guru in driving performance for both governance and the private sectors. Through his big, fast, result methodology. He is currently the chairman of Pemandu Associate. That is a multidisciplinary consultancy based in Kuala Lumpur, specialized in public sector transformation, business turnaround, and strategic communication. In 2014, Bloomberg placed him among the top 10 most influential policymakers in the world. And under his leadership, Pemandu was also named as the top 20 most innovative government agencies globally by Bloomberg Philanthropists and Nesta UK. Datuk Idris served as a cabinet minister under the Prime Minister Department between 2010 to 2017, taking helm of Malaysia National Transformation Program, known as NTP, that is a roadmap designed to spearhead the nation transition toward high income status by 2020. Prior to Pemandu, Datuk Idris was CEO of Malaysia Airlines and held various senior positions also in the Shell Group for 20 years. On top of his role in Pemandu, he currently serves as a non-executive co-chairman of Sunway Group, chairman of Heineken Malaysia, pro-chancellor of Sunway University, Dato also lecturer annually at Harvard University under Harvard Ministerial Program, continuously sharing his secret for effective transformation to minister and CEO worldwide today. For Indonesia, Datuk has done a series of virtual and physical talks at Jakarta to address the top civil servant. At previous discussion, almost 900, private sector stakeholder also and military, upon the invitation of His Excellency President Prabowo. Before Mr. Prabowo inauguration. Datuk, we have allocated 2 sessions today. The first will be dedicated to you for your presentation, 1 hour. And then the second session will be an interactive question and answer. It allocated 1 hour as well. And we are all eagerly anticipating your insight. Please allow me to hand over to you to comment your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Moderator Eric. I have a few slides that I want to take you through. And let me begin with the first slide, please. The challenge that we have for most top performing organizations, whether in the private sector or in the government, is the challenge is how can senior leadership unleash their organization to achieve big, fast results? This is a very, very important challenge that we have to think about. And if you don't succeed in doing that successfully, then you have a problem to achieve big, fast results. The answer, I will come straight to the answer. The answer is the senior leadership must pursue the game of the impossible. And also the senior leadership must insist on a new way of working. And I'm going to talk about this, the answer in the next 1 hour so that you understand the word how to do it. We are focusing a lot more on the how to do it. A lot of people talk about transformational leadership as a concept and as a theory, as a framework, but they don't talk about how to do it. So today I'm going to much more bias on the discussion of how to turn it into action. Next slide. I have been very fortunate to have met all these people that you see on the picture here, and every single one of them, and talk about one thing and one thing alone. And I don't see the slide on the screen. Daryl, excuse me. I've lost the slide.
I didn't see it either. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see the slide.
Yeah, sige pakai.
You don't see it as well?
Hi,
Yeah,
just give me
we don't
one
see
second. I'm just
Okay.
putting
the
it up.
slide.
Okay, all right.
Apologies for this.
Daryl still set up for you.
Yeah.
Can you see it now? Is it
Okay. Thank you. Well done.
Thank you.
And so, as I said, I've been very fortunate that I have been able to meet all these people, and every single one of them talk about the same thing. They talk about this game of the impossible, and that means you have to really work on making sure that you achieve the impossibilities. I'm still struggling with my. Give me just a moment. I got a problem with my now. Excuse me. I'm normally quite good at doing this. Today it's not good.
What is the issue with this?
No, I've lost the
slides?
slide.
Okay, let me share it again. How about now? Can you see it?
Yeah, sure.
Perfect.
Yeah. And so all of them talk about this game, the impossible. That means setting a target that they themselves say cannot be achieved based on the current way of doing it, but it can be achieved based on an entirely new way how to do it. And that's what they do. So that means you're forced to find a new way how to do it. So the key here is that leaders set up an impossible target that cannot be achieved based on the current way of doing it. And therefore, they're then forced to come with a new way how to do it. And that is Carl Lewis, and that's Usain Bolt, and everyone else that I have spoken to, Steve Jobs, they all talk about the same stuff. Next slide. You know, I work in Shell for 23 years, so I'm an oil and gas guy through and through over that period. I was based in London, and I had a wonderful job in London, and I'm a big fan of Chelsea Football Club because at that time, the Chelsea training ground is next to the school where my sons were studying. And it was a great time when we were living in London for 4 years. I had 4 Italian gardeners. I had my own private tennis court at Shell that spent for me. I was a vice president for retail. That means in 100 stations worldwide. I was then in charge at that time, based in London. And I thought I will never return to Malaysia. Unfortunately, one fine day, my boss, who was British, he called me into his office. He said, Idris, I wanted to go back to Malaysia. We have a Shell company in Malaysia that have lost money for 10 straight years. We've lost 1.5 billion ringgit of losses, and we had an explosion. And if you return and do the job as a managing director, if you tell us it cannot be fixed, we will close the company. So I remember I turned up in the job on my first day. Every time when I come to a new job, the first thing I do on day one is to gather everyone in the company in a room, and I declare the game of the impossible. I tell them, ladies and gentlemen, every single year here we'll make profit. And we want to make profits here every single year, a new record profit. And that is what I said. There was one Dutchman in the crowd, and he said, his name is Hans. He said, Idris, you will never make profit here because your predecessors talk like you. I want to make a bet with you. And if you make a profit, I will pay you 100 Malaysian ringgit. You know, Dutch people don't make big bets, very small bets. I said, okay, Hans, I will accept the bet. In 6 months, he lost the bet. I asked him to give me the 100 ringgit and a letter from him. If you go to the office today, that was in the year 2003. If you go to the Shell office today, you will still see his 100 ringgit and his letter framed on the hallway. And that's what you see in the hallway. And the reason why I wanted to do that was because I wanted everyone in the organization to rally around what we were trying to do. In fact, in 6 months in 2003, I joined the company in June 2003. By December 2003, we had made our first profit of 10 million net profit after tax. I told my guys, my procurement manager, to buy all the iPod. You remember in the year 2003, Apple had just released iPod. So I told my procurement manager to buy all the iPod to give to the staff in the company. They didn't have enough in Kuala Lumpur, so he went to Singapore to buy more. And we gave the iPod to everybody, including the tea lady, including the security guard. It was in December 2003. I wanted to send a signal to them that this is not fluke. We didn't make money in 1 year and then we lose money subsequent year. In the second year, we made 265 million net profit after tax. In the third year, we made 509 million net profit after tax. In that year, The Edge is a reputable analytical magazine and a newspaper in Malaysia. They've done a big research of all the companies in the whole of Malaysia. In the year 2009, the company that I ran at that time in 2009 was joined with Maxis as the top 2 most profitable company in the whole Malaysia. And so I'm very proud of the team, what we did at that time. So the point here is that this is what is meant by setting up an impossible target. We did a lot of crazy stuff that was outside the box. Next slide, please. Really what I was doing at the time was, when I became the CEO of Shell Middle Distillate, I rejected business as usual approach. I was very focused on True North. The measure of True North was clear in my mind. It's about turning the company around so that it becomes profitable. And I was uncompromising and almost ruthless in prioritizing what were the things that were achieving the True North. True North is a measure of success. Measure of success for us, for a company that was losing money, is to turn it around to become profitable. So anything that was moving the needle that helped us to really improve the profitability of the company, they were my priorities. If they didn't directly improve the profitability of company, they were not my priorities. Next slide, please. This is what I find. In fact, I lecture twice a year in Harvard, in April and in September. In that lecture, we have ministers from finance around the world, ministers of economic development, and ministers of education, and ministers of public health. We bring them to Harvard and we lecture to them on how countries and organizations can produce outstanding outcome. The conclusion is most countries actually have beautiful plans. The problem is not about the plans, it's about implementation. They fail to deliver on the plan. And you will see the 8 main problems behind the reason for failure to achieve it. 1 is unclear direction, they're not focused. 2 is lack of leadership commitment. The plans are too high level, they're not translated into practical realities. Implementation is very rigid. People do not work together as a team, they work in silo. They don't get enough public and stakeholder input. Poor monitoring of results, lack of transparency and results orientation. And as a result of this, next slide, please. My team and I in Pemandu, we've developed a proprietary tool we call the new way of working. If you introduce this 8-step methodology, we believe that new way of working will immediately turn the organization from an average organization to a top performing organization. I'm going to take you through one by one this new way of working, how to do it step by step. The first one, before you begin anything to transform an organization, you must do step number 1. Get the top leadership to hold a strategic and leadership workshop. In the case of energy and oil and gas in Indonesia, if you want to do this, step number 1 is to get your minister into the workshop together with all the companies that are involved, state-owned enterprises in the oil and gas, bring representative also from the private sector relating to oil and gas and energy, put them in the room and go through a discussion about 2 things. 1, clarity on the measure of success. which we call true north. Be very, very clear about that. Why is that important? Because once you're clear about the measure of success, you then can get alignment around the key priorities, the things that you're going to focus on to achieve the measure of success. This is very, very important. And you only need one day to do this. If you bring your president involved to open the workshop, the minister is also involved, and the CEOs of all the state-owned enterprises, Pertamina, for example, and all the other oil companies representative in the workshop, then you come with these two things. By the end of the day of the workshop, they must already collectively agree what is the measure of success, what is the true north for Indonesia oil and gas sector or energy sector, and secondly, what are the 5 or 6 priorities that need to be focused on to achieve those measures of success. This is very important. You know why it's so important? No transformation effort will succeed unless they have leadership commitment and support. That is why step number 1 is important. So when that is done, you then move to step number 2. This is an example, and I'm just going to give this. When I became a minister in the Prime Minister's department, I was given an impossible target to achieve 12.8% growth in private sector investment over a very short period of time. And so that by the year 2020, we will more than double our private investment. He said that he wanted me to achieve that rather relatively quickly. Next slide. And another example of the game of the impossible, we are going backtracking a little bit here. At the time when I'm co-chairman of Sunway, we had our cabinet workshop. In the cabinet workshop, we all agreed that we have a problem with the company because the profit remains flat for 14 years. From 2010 right up to the year 2020, it remained around 790 million ringgit per year. And that was not growing. And so we have to fundamentally set a new measure of success. The new measure of success that we set during the workshop was to say, let's increase the profit 3 times. Big results. And we should achieve it not over 10 years, but in 5 years, we want to achieve that. In 5 years until the year 2030, we set up this thing in 2025 for the implementation. And so in 5 years, we want to triple the profit of the company. And we identified 63 initiatives. If we focus on the 63 initiatives, we will achieve the numbers. That's what we said in that workshop. Next slide, please. After we finish the workshop, then we move into step 2. In step 2, we take the best and the brightest talents in the government, the private sector, representative from civil society, relevant representative and stakeholders, and we put them in the laboratories. In the case of Malaysia, we had 12 laboratories, we call them. Labs means a lab is where we put very bright people in the room. They come together and figure out, they brainstorm ideas and solutions in detail, how to achieve the true north. And we call it, jokingly, we call it Hotel California. That means you can check out anytime you like, but you can never leave. You stay there for 6 weeks full time. They do detailed strategy translation so that you have detailed implementations. Next slide. When I was CEO, appointed the CEO of Malaysia Airlines, this is the picture on the first day. And I had a huge town hall session among all the people there. We had 900 people in the town hall session. And this is the photograph of me on the 1st of December, 2005. That was my first day in the office. And there's a front page of the news that time. Everybody said, oh, Idris will not be able to achieve the turnaround Malaysia Airlines because we only had 2.5 months of cash. which meant that if we didn't turn around the airline in 2.5 months, in 2.5 months, we have no more money for salary, no more money for fuel. So we have to move really, really fast in doing it. And so we had the labs. So the team, they all sat around to figure out how to solve this problem. Next slide. Because we had a problem in oil and gas in terms of profitability, what I did was I got our finance director to take last year's profit and loss statement and break them down into individual flight profit and loss statement. You know, at that time, the finance director said, boss, no airline in the world produce individual flight profit and loss statements. Because he said, we have 110,000 flights in a year. Do you mean to ask me to break down last year's profit and loss so that we can see 110,000 profit and loss? I said, absolutely, yes. He's got the first-class honors degree from Cambridge University. So I joked with him. Said, Tuku Azmil, since you have a first-class honors degree from Cambridge University, if you can't do this, that means you're not good enough. And of course, he took the challenge. In 1.5, I think it's two weeks, he and the team produced 110,000 profit and loss statement. So if a flight left Kuala Lumpur, by the time it reached London Heathrow, in 1 hour, we will know how much money did we make on the flight or how much money we lost on the flight. And then in the lab, it was quite incredible. We had the marketing people inside the lab. We have the sales people, the HR people, the IT people, the pilot representative, the cabin crew representative, the folks that in charge of the entertainment, the folks in charge of food. They were all together in the room. But we told them, please find answers to all the routes and the flights, why they were losing money and to turn them around. You know what they saw? We were losing 20 million ringgit a year flying to London. They saw the same 2 flights every day was making money to London, but the same 2 flights were losing money every day to London. You know what they said? Oh, we know the answer. We get rid of those 2 flights that were losing money, and we are immediately making money flying to London. The reason why they were losing money was, you know, it takes 13 hours to fly from Kuala Lumpur to London. The flight that were losing money, the passengers would have slept for 13 hours on the flight. By the time they arrived in London, it was already evening. The passengers didn't want that flight because they've already slept. So the only way we could persuade passengers to come on those flights was to lower our fares. But because we lowered the fares, the revenue is not enough to cover the cost. That's why we lost. We lost money on those flights. So the moment we got rid of those 2 flights, the London sector was immediately profitable. We didn't change our fare. We didn't change our cost structure. We didn't change our food. Everything else remained the same. We were profitable. And we were also losing money on our kangaroo routes. We call them the flights that were flying from Kuala Lumpur to Adelaide, to Perth, to Brisbane, and to Sydney. We were losing money. So when the labs look at the reasons why we were losing money, it was so obvious to them. The reason why we lost money was because the passengers coming from Europe, by the time they arrived in Kuala Lumpur, the flights to the kangaroo routes, including New Zealand, have already departed. They cannot connect. And so they asked the lady who was in charge of scheduling, why did you produce a schedule this way? And her response is, oh, because I'm prioritizing the flights that come from the Middle East, from Dubai, from Abu Dhabi, from Oman. But those yields were very low. She thought that the yields coming from those flights from the Middle East were higher than Europe. So she thought, if I connect the ones from the Middle East, that's more profitable. But because we didn't have profit and loss statement by flight, she had no idea how to check the real yields of those incoming flights. So the team in the lab found the answer. As soon as they looked at that, they said, if we change the schedule, make sure the flights from Europe, when they arrive at Kuala Lumpur International Airport, they can connect to Brisbane, they can connect to Perth, to Sydney, to Adelaide, and also to Auckland in New Zealand. And that's how we made money. Straight away, we were making money. We were making a lot of money to Taiwan and Hong Kong. We didn't have enough planes. We cut out our routes to Cairo. We got rid of our flights to Frankfurt. We took the planes and put them on to Taiwan and Hong Kong. And that's how we made money. And these were all done in 6 weeks. We had the entire team looking at the answers to the problems, looking at the profit and loss statement, and they found the answers. The answers didn't come from me. I just came with a methodology to allow them to find the answers. And then they found the answers. And this is a wonderful way to do it. But the point is that you can unleash the talent of your organization by focusing on the measure of true north and focusing on precisely looking for the answers that really focus on getting the results. Next slide, please. Let me talk about what we did in response to the Prime Minister. You remember the Prime Minister told me, go and grow the economy. I want you, Idris, to find out how to get the private sector to invest money in our economy so that we can grow our economy. So I told him, sir, there is one solution. I would like to invite all the top CEOs, the movers and shakers of the big companies in Malaysia into 12 laboratories. So we conducted concurrently 12. We have an oil and gas laboratory. We have oil palm industry lab. We had another one for agriculture. We had another one for Greater Kuala Lumpur on tourism, etc. There were 12 sectors that we focus on. One of them was oil and gas. And we told them, you tell us how many projects are you going to invest in Malaysia, project by project, and tell us how much investment are you going to put in there, how many jobs are you going to create, and what is the contribution of your project to the gross national income of Malaysia. At the end of 8 weeks, there were 131 projects that were confirmed and endorsed. And it was incredible. Never before in the history of Malaysia did we gather 500 people, lock them in the room for 8 weeks in the year 2010. And at the end, there were $406 billion of commitment by the private sector. This is really phenomenal. It was this that put me among the top 10 most influential policymakers in the world, according to Bloomberg. I went to see Bloomberg and I asked them, why did you put my name on the list and not Obama? Because Obama was the president at that time. Or they told me, Idris, we put you there, not because we are impressed with you, but because we are impressed by the methodology that you use. All these people, the private sector, don't report to me. I have no authority over them. But we found a method called the laboratories that allowed them to come together with the government to do this. You know what we found? 60% of the private sector investment is stuck because of government bureaucracy. And this is the same problem we find everywhere. We've run the labs in Oman, we've run the same labs in Ethiopia, in Nigeria, in South Africa, even in Moscow, we ran the labs. This is exactly the same phenomenon. Government bureaucracy is so lengthy for approvals and permits. And the private sector projects are stuck. And that's why investment into the country is not rapid, it's not fast. 30% of the private sector investment is stuck because of tax incentive or financial support that they need. Again, the government bureaucracy is very low. This thing is actually what we found also a reason for corruption, because a lot of the private sector folks out there, they have to bribe government officials in order to get approvals, at the same time to get the financial support that are required, including utilities, which is only 10%. But we believe that when we ran the labs, all of these problems were resolved. 131 projects there's no more corruption for the 131 projects because we discussed them and we got the approval. They were resolved in altogether 8 weeks full time. The ministers come in and out from the lab. The prime minister was also there. We don't have a president in Malaysia like you, but we have a prime minister. He came into the lab. The individual ministers came, the minister for energy. They were inside the lab to approve and get all these things sorted out. All those 131 projects, there's no more corruption because the approvals was granted and they were being put through what's called the green lane to get things moving. Next slide. After we finished the step 2, the lab was completed, we conducted open day. The lab recommendations were put all over in the exhibition hall and plastered on the wall. It's almost like a war room. We invited civil society, everyone that was interested in Malaysia, they could come there. And we ran it in 3 places, in Kuala Lumpur, Kota Kinabalu, and Kuching. So we conducted it. Opposition parties, they came, civil society, oil and gas, anybody is interested, even priests as well, they came. The students who came, parents who came, everybody came because they were interested. You know, the beauty here, we now were able to get public feedback, input from the public. And they were all supportive of what we were trying to do. This is very important for government because government people, ministers, they make speeches and they read speeches. Nobody believes speeches from government when it's read. But when you put the detail and plaster it on the wall, exactly what you're going to do, they start believing government because these are real projects on the ground that are going to happen. Step number 4. In step number 4, what we do here is that we bring in all the recommendations of the labs. We write them down in our roadmap. We call it the blueprint. And then we issue this blueprint so that everybody in Malaysia know what we said we were going to do. And the other ones, Malaysia Airlines. When I was in Malaysia Airlines, we also produced the Malaysia Airlines business turnaround plan so that the board, the employees, the pilots, the cabin crew, and the whole public know what we are trying to do. So the reason why we published the roadmap so that everybody knows it. You know, when you publish it and everybody knows it, the whole of the leadership of the government as well as the corporation become completely pregnant. Pregnant, when you are a woman, when you are pregnant, there's only one consequence. You have to deliver. You cannot be pregnant beyond 9 months. You must deliver. And having now made everybody pregnant with the issuance of the roadmap, we have the next step to cascade them into targets throughout the organization. Many of you who work in human resource, you will understand that they have annual appraisal at the end of the year, but there are also targets given to employees. So what we do is the lab recommendation is now being taken and put into the key performance indicators targets for the relevant ministries in the government, as well as the private sector, so that they know exactly what they're going to do, how they're going to do it. They will be monitored and appraised at the end of the year. Step number 6. In step number 6, what we do here, this is about implementation. Implementation is the most important part of the 8-step process. Here, we have a new method of implementation. We call it DMS. If your name is clearly written down, for you to do a particular activity, you must do it relentlessly. M stands for monitor it constantly. That means every Friday, we have a dashboard. In the case of the government of Malaysia, the Prime Minister and all the ministers and relevant CEOs can see the dashboard. If Mr. A is supposed to do activity 1 in that week, if Mr. A did not do it, on the dashboard, it will come out as red color in the traffic light. Why on a Friday? Because the boss, who is Mr. B, can spoil the weekend of Mr. A by sending out a message that says something like this. What are you going to do differently this coming Monday so that next Friday it will become green? Can you tell me what you're going to do differently by this Sunday? That means Mr. B has spoiled the weekend of Mr. A because Mr. A will be having a meeting with all his staff on a Saturday and also on a Sunday to find the answers to the problems that they encounter in implementation. Believe me, in implementation, there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of problems of implementation. And if you don't have a monitoring system, you don't have a problem-solving mechanism, you cannot succeed in implementation. Because we always believe in Malaysia, whatever recommendation you put in the labs, we have a one-third, one-third, and one-third rule. One-third of the recommendations of the lab will be implemented exactly as per the lab recommendation. There is another one-third that needs to be modified because in implementation, things have changed. So you have to modify the recommendation. There is another one-third. There was not even thought in meetings. Let me show you the next slide on what we do. We set up a delivery unit we call Pemandu. I was the CEO of Pemandu in the Prime Minister's department or office. And I have about 80 people working for me. And we are very, very focused on making sure the labs are done. We do resource planning, we do strategic communication. At the same time, automatic issue escalation, problem solving. Next slide. Let me show you how we used to do problem solving. I return back to the example I gave before. If Mr. A didn't do it, Mr. B, the boss, will send a message to A to resolve it. In the following week, if Mr. A still did not resolve it, the problem will automatically be escalated to Mr. A. The boss will now have the problem. He or she has 2 weeks to resolve the problem. If he or she cannot resolve it, it will then be escalated to the minister in charge. The minister will now have to solve the problems. And if the minister cannot resolve it within 2 weeks, it will then be escalated to the prime minister in our case. In your case, it will be the president. And after that, if you come to the prime minister cannot resolve it, it goes to God. My point is this. The idea of an automatic escalation will force a new culture to exist in the organization. The first thing that will happen is that problems are no longer kept under the carpet, no longer hidden. They have to be put on the table for resolution. Number two, the automatic escalation will help to make sure that the entire leadership within the organization, right up to the prime minister, are involved in problem solving. People no longer start pointing fingers down the line. There are many bosses who keep on saying the reason why this is problem is because down below, the people down below are not doing their job. People in the organization, they say the reason why we're not achieving result is people at the top are not doing their job. But once we've run the labs, we have a clear identification of the activities. Week by week, we know who's going to do what. Then we know how we can resolve this. And I believe automatic escalation of problem solving is a critical part of turning an organization from being a mediocre or an average organization to become a top performing organization. But I know this is difficult. This is tough. But I can tell you, I return back to the story about Usain Bolt. the story about Carl Lewis. They were doing this every day, every week to become the fastest runner on earth. You cannot be the Olympics champion if you're scared of hard work. Hard work is very, very important. If you want to be Olympics champion, if you want to be global champion, if you want to have outstanding results. But if you want to have ordinary results, average results, then you can become lazy. But if you want to achieve big, fast results, you have to bring in the discipline of action. Next slide, please. Let me tell you a story about Minister of Energy. The Minister of Energy is Datuk Peter Chin. We used to have a problem, big problem in one of our states, in Sabah. And they have a lot of problem with energy interruption. We call it SAIDI, System Average Interruption Duration Index. That means in the number of minutes we have blackout. That means no electricity. And Sabah has a massive problem. At that time, the total number of minutes for blackout for the year, when we were talking about this, was 2,870 minutes of blackout in the state of Sabah. The Prime Minister gave him a target to bring it down to 700 minutes. And I was looking at the newspaper on a Saturday, and I was reading it. My friend Peter Chin said, and he was quoted on the front page of the newspaper, "I will resign, I will rather step down from my post if I do not achieve Sabah's SAIDI." So I called him on Saturday morning, "Brother Peter, I think you better start looking for a new job. I don't think you can make it." But I can tell you, we ran the labs. Every week, Peter was having the problem-solving meeting with his team. You look at the numbers here. Sabah's interruption duration index historically were very, very high. In fact, in the year 2005, it was 3,900 minutes of blackout in that year. In 2006, 4,000 minutes. By the way, this is higher than Kalimantan. Our minutes was very, very bad, the SAIDI. But you know, at the end of the year, Brother Peter kept his job because the SAIDI, the blackout dropped from 2,687 minutes to 687 minutes by the end of the year. So you can see what can happen when you do rigorous work, week after week, problem solving to resolve the issues. Today, ladies and gentlemen, the same state, the SAIDI is now below 100 minutes of blackout per year, which is actually very close to the national average for Malaysia now. Next. Step number 7. This is also a very, very important step. If you want to tell the public about the results that you've achieved, they don't believe government data. And so in Malaysia, we believe it's so important to have external validators. In this case, we employ PwC to validate the results of everything that we do. So that when we publish a report, which is next slide, when we publish the report of our performance, next slide, we tell the public, we promise you in the roadmap, this is what we said we were going to do, this is what we have achieved, and this is the performance score. And this is what we have failed to achieve. And this is what we're going to do differently. We put it in the report. I believe in the 7 years I was in government, 6 years as a minister, I believe at that time, there was no government in the world that published the performance scores of all the individual ministers, except Malaysia. So we publish it in the annual report. The annual report normally comes to 270 to 300 pages. We have the Minister for Energy, Minister for Oil Palm, Minister for Commodities, Tourism Minister, Agriculture Minister. They all have their performance results, the scores, published in our annual report. Against the list of priorities and targets, their achievement, their their failures as well, and what they're going to do differently. And all of these is audited and validated by PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC. So, and then the people will know. And this is the thing that we say the annual report is a very important tool to show transparency and accountability. And that's why Brother Peter Chin, he was daring enough to say, if I don't achieve my target, I will resign. I must say that our Prime Minister, after his first term, first 5 years, he looked at the performance of the ministers. Of course, he looked at the political implications of which party they come from and the number of votes they have. I must say, in the second term, he did not appoint half of the cabinet ministers. And he brought in new ministers who were better at delivering results. So he made sure he looked at the performance of the ministers and used that as a criteria to retire some of the ministers and bring in new blood, new people who can do it. So our view is that in my corporate life, I have worked altogether now for 42 years in the oil and gas sector, as well as in the airline business and in government. I have concluded that the answer to high performance, whether it's in government or whether in the private sector, hinges on an ability of leaders to pursue the game of the impossible, set impossible targets, then introduce a new way of working. Let me now talk about some results. During my tenure as a minister, we had 7 years of record government revenue. Every single year, we achieve a new record of government revenue. We also were able to, 6 years, we were continuously reducing our fiscal deficit. We also passed a law in Parliament so that our government debt does not surpass 55% of GDP. And we were consistently keeping our debt level below 55%. In fact, in the year when I had left in 2017, we brought it down to 53%. This is very, very important. Most countries in the world suffer from huge government debt. The worst example is Japan. Japan's government debt stands at more than 260% of GDP, worse than Greece. America is a country that is full of government debt. They really have to solve the issue. So I would say 90% of countries that have reached high income status, they've reached that through an accumulation of unsustainable debt. And we were very clear in our minds in Malaysia that we were going to grow the economy so that we don't encumber the future generation with high debt. Next slide. Again, we were able to increase our private investment by doubling it, 2.2 times greater than the previous one in terms of CAGR. We were able to achieve 2.6 million new jobs that we created. For a country, when we first started the lab, we have 28 million people. 2.6 million jobs that we created from the 131 projects. It was really very good because we then brought more prosperity to a lot of the people. Next slide. I'm very proud of this slide because you can see the chart. The public investment, that means the government borrowing to invest in the economy, which is the blue chart. The red one is the private sector investment. Before the lab, which we conducted in 2010, the two bars were neck to neck. They were the same level. After we ran the lab, which was conducted in 2010, you will see the inflection point, the divergence. The private sector is investing more and more, much more into our economy. And the government is investing less and less in relative terms. In fact, these days, the investment from the private sector is double the investment of the government. And why is this important? Because we realize by doing this, this is the only way we can grow our economy without incurring unsustainable debt for the government for the future. Next slide. One of the labs that we recommended was, we had an oil and gas lab. And in the lab, we have Shell people, we have Petronas, we have Exxon, we have Caltex, we have Mobil, all the oil and gas, even the guys that were involved in the services sector, the maintenance of the platforms, they were in the lab. There was a challenge that we posed to Petronas. The challenge was this: why is it that in Singapore, they don't have a drop of oil and gas? They don't produce any oil and gas, but yet they have the biggest LNG trading in the whole of ASEAN. They have the biggest oil refinery in the whole of ASEAN. Bigger than Malaysia, bigger than Indonesia, bigger than Brunei. How come they have the biggest LNG trading? Why not Malaysia? You know what the response from Petronas was? We told you 20 years ago that we could do an integrated petroleum hub in Malaysia as big, if not bigger, than the one in Singapore. But we wanted a deep port at a place called Pengerang. But unfortunately, the government said no at the time because there were 3,000 graves in the area that was designated for the port, for the hub. There were 20,000 acres of land, but there were 3,000 graves. There were 940 homes. Petronas said, we would like to build the oil and gas hub here, but the government did not agree to relocate the 3,000 graves and relocate the 940 homes. So in the labs, we found the answers to do this. The interesting thing was in the lab, as we discussed it, half of the graves were Muslim graves, and the lab found the answers. If we get the imam to write a fatwa, how to dig the graves according to Islamic teaching and tradition, many of the Malay Muslims have no problem with relocating the graves. So we then agreed and we dug the graves and relocated them. The other half were Chinese graves, that means Malaysian Chinese. Most of them were not Muslims. So we couldn't apply the fatwa to them. But what solution was given by the lab? The lab found a solution. Why don't we create a new business in the area called Pengerang in Johor? Anybody that in the future that will die in the place, they will get buried in this new business, new area, very profitable business. And we told the people whose ancestors were buried in the grave in Pengerang, if you agree that we will dig the remains of your ancestors to this new place, you will become a shareholder of this new business. And the Malaysian Chinese said, okay, let's do it tomorrow. So we dug the graves. We then told Petronas that 940 homes, if you agree to build new homes for them, and we will give 2 to 3 acres of land for each of the families, and you cover the cost, then we will relocate the 940 homes. And that's exactly what we did. And we did that. And we have 53 billion refinery and petroleum integrated development we created now. It's now producing something like 300 barrels per day of capacity. By the way, this lab was conducted in 2010. So this thing called the Pengerang Integrated Petroleum Complex is completed. We have 36 billion of us, associated facilities. Altogether, there's an 5 billion LNG storage and import terminal built by Dialog and Vopak. And this is incredible that we did this. We created a Johor Petroleum Corporation. So this is a thriving LNG storage facility that can do many, many things. And we can import a lot of gas. We can import a lot of oil as well, and we can re-export them. So this thing is a very incredible thing that we were doing here. So you could see the tremendous possibilities that can be done. But we did this in 8 weeks. You don't need 8 months to figure out how to do it. But of course, building the terminal will take a long time. But the ideation the plans for doing it was done in 8 weeks. Next. And this was the scoring. You can see the ministers that were involved. The minister involved that was doing public transport, Minister for Transport, his performance score in the year 2016 was 84%. We had a Minister for Education, his scores were 90%, for example. Minister in charge of rural development, his scores 114%. That means 14% in excess of the target. Oil and Gas Ministry, 98% in the year 2016. Minister for Healthcare, they achieved all their targets 100%. Minister in charge of Electrical Electronics, 97%. You can see these were the results of the thing that we were doing. We were putting it available in the public domain that caused an entirely new culture to exist. Next slide. This was when I was Malaysia Airlines. Before I joined, we had a loss of 1.23 billion ringgit. In my first year, we nearly broke even. In my second and third and the fourth year, we made profit. In fact, the highest profit in the 60-year history of the airline was during my tenure. We had 840 million net profit. Even in the year 2010, when oil price have reached $100 a barrel, in that year, next slide, please. In that year, I was voted on the board of IATA. That means we vote for the top CEOs of the airlines to sit on the board of IATA. This is the airlines, the board that covers all the airlines globally. In that year, when the oil price has reached $100 a barrel, in 2008 it was, you know, the loss incurred by Delta came to $6.39 billion in a year. Northwest lost $4.1 billion in a year. And 97% of the airlines in the world actually lost money. I'm very proud to say that only 3% of the airlines were making profit. Malaysia Airlines is one of them. I told you the story that I'm co-chairman of Sunway. Sunway is a conglomerate. We have our own hospital, we have our own university, we have our own hotels, we have our own construction company, we have manufacturing, one of the big companies conglomerate in Malaysia. Our profit before tax was stuck at 790 million ringgit per year for 14 years. As a result of the things that we were doing, implemented the 8-step process, we ran the labs, we had the implementation process. As we ran it through, in 1.5 years, we were able to bring our profit from 790 million ringgit to 1.52 billion ringgit in 1.5 years. And we are totally on track to get to our 3x target by the year 2030. Our share price 1.5 years ago stood at 1 ringgit 50 cents. It's now trending at 5 ringgit 80 cents. So you can see the impact of what you can do in an organization from being an average organization to become an outstanding organization in a very short period of time. Next slide, please. My son and I, Leon, the younger gentleman there on the chart there, he and I have a podcast. We call it The Game of the Impossible Podcast. If any one of you, we have 82 episodes now. Every week we release an episode. We've covered in great detail the methodologies that I've just spoken to you about. And it's entirely free. You don't have to pay for it. You just have to subscribe for free and you can listen to it. If you want to know how to run the lab, we have an episode on how to run the labs. We have an episode on how to do the DMS methodology, 1 hour each. We have an episode on how to set KPIs. We have an episode on how to set True North target, how to run the cabinet workshop, or how to run. We have all the episodes there. And I really encourage any one of you, if you have the time, you can listen to us on YouTube. I can even listen to us on in the short forms in Instagram or TikTok, but I encourage you to listen more on the long form on YouTube. You can even listen to on Spotify. But the idea here is that I took a time out in the year 2004, and so that we can share our experience to more people around the world. And so I'm really excited to see that sharing experience through a very new mode of doing it is very, very helpful. But of course, we have a consulting firm, Pamandu Associates. We will be very, very happy and will be honored to help you and your government if you wanted to run 6 weeks of laboratory for the entire oil and gas sector, because it's one of the 3 most important priority of the government. If you bring in the president-elect in the morning, he can make the speech, he can leave. The rest of the people, top leadership within oil and gas, you bring the top people in Pertamina and all the other oil and gas companies, upstream and downstream, midstream, put them all together. I can tell you in 6 weeks, you will find the answers. If you follow on to implement it, you will get tremendous results, big, fast results. What Indonesia needs, you don't need a very, very long process. You need a very, very quick process. So 1 day of a workshop and 6 weeks of top leadership, and then you're into implementation. And every month, every week, you're into problem solving and implementation. At the end of the year, you will see results. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Datuk. This is inspiring and I think insightful presentation. There are so many powerful takeaway. I noticed that the big fast result methodology has 8 steps. Emphasize pursuing the game of impossible through a new way of working. Okay, for elaborate some area for detailing, maybe I will give chance for the audience to question and answer. Okay, for the colleague, please type your question into the Q&A box. I will select a few of most relevant ones, and I will read to the Datuk. But I would like to effort to offer. I would like to offer the first opportunity to pose a question to the distinguished leaders who are joining us on the panel. Please, maybe some of leaders have some question, please. Datuk, meanwhile we waiting for the question, I'm trying to, I have a question. We know that globally now, the world is currently grappling with the energy transition and net zero targets. In your view, what is the biggest game of impossible for nation like, let's say, Indonesia or other country that they are still heavily reliant on fossil fuel? And how can you, or how can your new way of working be applied to accelerate this transition in a way, but we notice that it both just and measurable?
Yeah, that's a good question. I would say today, the game of the impossible for energy transition begin with you looking at your energy roadmap in Indonesia. You look at that, you will see immediately it is already an impossible target. And because the whole world has put in very, very high targets on energy transition. And when you look at it, I am convinced that in Indonesia, you will not achieve the target unless you find a new way how to do it. In Indonesia, you currently, if I look at the numbers, your renewable numbers, it's standing at 9.2%. And you have now said by the year 2040, you are going to get to 31%. That is actually a massive jump. And there's a study done for you to achieve that in Bappenas, the Ministry of National Development and Planning. You need annually total investment of US dollars, 200 billion annually between now and the year 2030, and over 1 trillion US dollars per year to get to the target of net zero carbon. You cannot achieve that based on the current way of doing it. I looked at your entire report, that's why I can read it. I know exactly what your game, the impossible is, unless you fundamentally transform your tax revenue to get that kind of money, you cannot achieve the target because money does not grow on trees. You immediately fundamentally have to, your president has to look at how to increase the tax to allow for this to happen. Number two, how to get the private sector to invest massively on oil and gas so that the government needs to invest it to get to the numbers. Otherwise, it cannot happen. And so there are fundamental issues associated with this. I believe if you want to achieve the energy transition, you need to run a lab for 6 weeks. You get the relevant government people in the lab, look at that target that I looked at before, and it also gives you an energy, your energy mix. I think it says you will still remain for fossil fuel at around 20%, and coal will remain at 24%. But your numbers, because you're a huge country, the amount of money that's needed to propel you to achieve that numbers are tough. So you need to run a lab for 6 weeks, bring the government people involved, bring the oil and gas people involved, put the roadmap that is there, your energy roadmap, your energy transition roadmap, and ask everybody the question, what are the projects that you in the private sector intend to implement to achieve this? How much money you're going to invest? How many jobs you're going to create? And you calculate then the contribution of each of those projects on that net zero carbon target. Then you calculate, work backwards. That's how you get to the numbers. And then you say, okay, if we agree, what is the government's way of getting the projects approved? How do you make sure that 60% bureaucracy is removed? Because when the projects are agreed, the private sector want to implement it, there are a lot of problems. Let me give an example. If a business want to open a huge solar farm today, they find the land, they want to do it. I guarantee you, it is very difficult to get approval to put that project for solar farm because the power generation from solar farm have to be connected to your national grid. You have to discuss how you're going to pay for that. Is there a subsidy associated with it? If your price for fossil fuel electricity is lower than electricity that's coming from the solar, then it cannot be profitable. There has to be some subsidy associated with doing this. So that is why in Malaysia, we introduced what is called the feed-in tariff. That everybody who pay electricity today, the moment you pay your electricity, 1% of that payment goes into a fund. We call it the feed-in tariff. And the feed-in tariff is the incentive for the businesses that are doing solar farm, for example. That's how we invest. But you know, because it's politically charged and it's painful, if Malaysia wants to achieve its target for energy transition, that 1% is not enough. It has to be 20%. But the politicians cannot do it because the public will jump. This is the problem that you have. Everything that is painful is difficult. And so I suggest, if you want in Indonesia to achieve your energy transition, take the roadmap and run a lab. In 6 weeks, you'll find the answers.
Fascinating. Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much for the answer. I'm going to Mr. Prahoro, or you have some question, Mr. Prahoro, for Datuk?
Well, Datuk, it is a very interesting view. I think this is the questions that's coming from moderator is quite straight to the heart of the issues. I think it's not only in Indonesia. I think also apply for around the world. I think this is also applies not only just a specific thing, especially for the country who are currently still relying on the fossil. So I think that's the challenge. I think this is I like to see from the view when we mentioned about the leaderships itself. So you're talking about the authority, later on talking about the value. I think this is two things that's most important for carrying out the systems. We're talking about authority. People tends to see the higher your position is. I think about the higher authority, the one that you can get. Right? In fact, in reality, it's not the case. The higher you become for the positions, basically your authorities become limited on certain things. So I think this is you're talking about the leadership thing, the one that you can grab. I think this is the need to be aligned with the steps that you just mentioned earlier, the 8 steps that you provided, as well as the talking about the leadership as well as the value. Sometimes KPI, when you're talking about the numbers, most of them, the one that you mentioned is this number, right? You basically on time, on budget, on the spec, and so on. I think this is something that people tends to see right now is whether all the achievement, are there any sacrificing by the value? Yes, you achieve the target, but the corporate value is lost, or the corporate value is something that you need to sacrifice it. The standing is basically when you do the KPI, basically there's a value that we need to keep in order to achieve all this one. But this thing is like can become. I like to see whether yes, we deliver the big results, but we still keep the value there. The value is that we don't want to sacrifice it for just to achieve the numbers. And also talking about the sustainability. Yeah, I don't want to achieve this one during your time period, but after you resign or after you're no longer in the positions, but that ones can be declined. So it means this is not depending on the one person's, but also the depending on the system itself. So I think this is something that I would like to see from your view.
Yeah, from my view, the first point that you made, it's very important to keep the values. The new way of working does not remove your current values. You must retain your values. People, that means integrity, honesty, accountability. Those are very important things that you need to keep. Whatever values you have, the new way of working does not remove that value. You must retain the value that you consider as important. For example, in Sunway, the value that we have is called honesty, humility, and integrity. So when we run the labs, we still keep the same values. That is unchanged in the way. In Malaysia Airlines, we call it Malaysian hospitality. That means value is very important for Malaysian hospitality. That means how to greet people when they come to your home. We treat them, when they come to our airline, we treat them like we are inviting them to Hari Raya open house. We call it, the code for Malaysia Airlines is MH. That's the airline code MH. We translate to Malaysian hospitality.
Okay.
And so there is a value. So when we did the 8-step new way of working, we still embrace the Malaysian hospitality. Although that was a hard target. In fact, what I forgot to mention, we in fact have a lab to enhance our customer service, to improve that based on the Malaysian hospitality. That's why in my time that we were there, the whole time when I was there, we were 3 years the best cabin crew award in the world because of the Malaysian hospitality. In fact, we wrote clear text for them according to the lab. They must memorize those texts. They use those texts to speak to the passengers, and so that they speak nicely in those language. We also We made sure that our Malaysian hospitality exists not just in the aircraft, but also at the check-in counter and at the people that are handling the baggage and the folks that handling lost luggage and the folks that help you at the lounge when you're in the lounge, because the whole customer journey. So you must bring in the values must remain there. You keep intact the values, but the new way of working is just a new method in which they're going to work. But you keep your values. You're very right. You don't remove your good values that you want to. You keep and entertain in your organization. In Oman, the joke that they have in Oman when we ran the lab, they say, "Oh, Idris, when you introduce this new way of working, it doesn't work in Oman." Because our value here is that we are very lazy people. One, the minister said, and he said, you know what our culture is? Our culture and our values is called Emirates, he said. He joked. And he actually meant the joke. Emirates stand for English manage, Indian run, Arab takes everything. Because we don't like to work. Our culture is we just want, the whole Emirates is done by Englishmen, Tim Clark and others. All the managers there are Indians. All the Arab just sit there and they don't do the work and they collect money only. So we told them, look, this culture we will change. Because this culture cannot continue. You have to start learning how to do it yourself. So we told them, the good part of your culture will remain, but the part of your culture that is not good, we will have to change. And so we sat with them over 3 years of implementation. It was incredible how they've turned around in the civil service in Oman. By the 3rd year, when we finished, IMF went to Oman and did their full review of the work of the government in Oman. The chapter that IMF talked about the projects that we were involved in is called Tanfid. In Arabic, it means acceleration. Make it fast, because they were very slow. And the IMF said this was a fantastic result and outcome. And we were very proud of being involved in it, because it was one work that we did, but fundamentally changed the culture because of very lackadaisical culture of before, that they just want to do Emirates. Back to the point, the good culture you keep, but the bad culture, bad values, you must try to remove them, because they are not all the values are good. And I would now return to, what was the second question now?
Then you're talking about the authority.
Authority, sustainability and authority. Because I realized that you mentioned before, sometime when you're very senior, you're remote from the ground. And it is true. That is why we use the 8-step process. There is no way as a minister I could implement all this without the labs, without the town hall events, without getting the whole organization involved. That's why the KPIs is cascaded throughout the organization, so that the whole organization is involved in doing it. And we get all the ministers involved. And when you get the leadership involved, the middle managers involved, the junior staff involved through the key performance indicators, then the whole organization is involved. In this way, if you then implement it this way, you will see sustainability happen. Because when you leave, you know, the company where I left in Shell, I left, there was a Dutchman that took over from me, and he did better than me after I left. And so you'll find that if you introduce a new way of working, it becomes institutionalized. It's no longer based on an individual. They know how to run the labs, they know how to do the open day, they know how to do the KPIs. When they know how to do it, they don't need the guy there. It will run. It will run on its own. So when you can do that, then it becomes wonderful. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Dato.
Thank you very much, Dato, Mr. Prahono. And for the next opportunity, I will invite Pak Bambang Utoro. Maybe if you have any question, please.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think it is Pak Dato. Thanks, Pak Moderator, and thanks, Pak Dato. You mentioned about the edge step. I'm just wondering how to get an understanding of the edge step. I'm thinking about that. I'm talking about that we are working in a team. How do we do to choose the appropriate people to run the 8 step? And then I'm thinking as well, is there correlation between 8 step and the graduation of somebody? I'm not sure about that one. I mean, you choose the master or graduation or postgraduate to run the 8 step, something like that. If we to correlate between the 8 step in and between the 8 step and the graduate for somebody. Thanks.
Yeah, we find the work that we did around the world in many countries. The countries or the organization that follow the entire 8 step, they produce better results than the companies or the countries that only do some of the 8 step. Some of the 8 step meaning they only do step 1, they only do step 2, and then they don't do the rest of the step. They only have some improvement, but not real big improvement. So if you want big, fast result, then you do the whole 8 step. I call the 8 step like taking antibiotics. Pak Bombong, you know, when you take antibiotics, you must finish the course. And if you finish the course, you get big results and you get sustainable results. And we really encourage them to take the whole 8 step rather than. Now back to the question, how do you implement it? I would strongly recommend, in the case of Indonesia, the president set up a delivery unit that reports to him. He is the president, and the team need not be big. And if he doesn't want to do that, the second approach is you get the Minister of Energy to do it only for the sector, only for the energy, for the oil and gas sector. So you can call the minister and say, look, let's make the change, make a fundamental change in the oil and gas sector, in the energy. He becomes a champion. We run the lab, we follow the 8 steps with him. And when you can successfully do it, then you can show to the president, look at the results we are delivering in oil and gas. We should do it for food as well, because those are criteria that's important for the president. If you want food security is very important, then do it for that as well. So I'm totally convinced if the president is interested in the outcome, he set up a delivery unit directly reporting to him, just like what we did before. He ran 1 cabinet workshop, 6 weeks of lab, and all his 3 priorities that he says, we run labs for every 3 of the priorities: food security, energy security, and including the downstream. What was the 3rd one again? I forgot. Cost of living, is it? Sorry, you're on mute.
Sorry. Is there correlation between the how to run 8 step with the graduation of somebody?
What do you mean from university?
Yeah,
Level
from
of
university.
education.
You will choose the economist or the lawyer or the engineer to run this.
Oh,
8 step.
no, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You don't need to have a particular degree to go and do it, as long as the person is interested in 3 things. Very bright in being able to see the big picture and detail. We call it the helicopter quality, the ability to fly and see the overview. Helicopter can come down and look at detail. A person that can see big picture and small picture. That's the first criteria. The second criteria is this person must be able to look for problems, how to resolve problems. Because in life, a lot of things stuck because of problems. People who can solve problems, problem solvers are very, very important. And the third criteria is very good in human relations skills. Can deal with people, can talk to president, can convince many different people. So whether the guy is a doctor or engineer or a philosopher, I don't really mind, as long as the person is good at A, B, and C. And if you find that, you know why, the leader, he's going to need a lot of people with him because the answers is not coming from him, coming from the labs. It's the labs that come with answers. When we run the labs, the answers are coming from the people in the labs. So if you have the oil and gas guys, they will find you the answers for energy transition. If you run the energy transition in Indonesia, and if you really want to achieve your target for your energy transition target, I guarantee you after 6 weeks, you will conclude that you will need nuclear energy. But you have to figure out how to deal with earthquakes because you're in the ring of fire. So the location for where to put nuclear is very important. But there's public issues associated with that.
Yep.
How to deal with the public issues. So you have to engage the public because, frankly speaking, nuclear is clean. And it can be cheaper today with small modular reactors. It can be a lot cheaper than the large-scale reactors. And you can put them in places in Indonesia that is far away from the ring of fire.
Yep.
And so it is possible to do it, but you need people to sit down there. And by the way, there are technical people inside the labs. They will tell you what to do. You know, when we ran the lab in Malaysia, we had a lab on public transport. When we did the lab on public transport, everybody in Malaysia said we cannot build a mass rapid transit in Kuala Lumpur because they said underneath the city, there's clastic limestones. And if you build the subway, the underground rail underneath it, all the high-rise building will collapse. But we brought in the experts inside the labs and the experts from Germany and other places. They said, well, we have built tunnels, we have built MRTs, and many other places that have classic limestones. So when we had the open day, all the guys who came from the public, the critical of the MRT project, we got the experts to tell them to calm down. We told them it's okay. We've done it in many, many countries, and it's okay, no problem. And so when we started to do that, then we got the buy-in from the public, even for difficult things. We could get the buy-in because if you explain the details to them, the public will accept it. So I don't mind the degree, whatever degree they have, as long as they have the helicopter quality and they have the problem-solving capability and they have good relationship and rapport with people.
Thanks, Pak Datuk.
Yeah.
I'll try to implement it in my organization.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bambang Otoro. Datuk, we have some question in Q&A box. I will read one question before we back to the audience in the panel. This is a question from Avia. In many public sector environment, leaders often face structural limitation, rigid procedures, and a culture that isn't always ready for rapid transformation. From your experience, what are the first 3 strategic moves a transformational leader should make to deliver big, fast result without compromising governance, accountability, or team morale?
I think I have thought about this question for a very long time because when I was in government. It's a very good question. You are right by raising the question about structural limitations, a lot of rigidities. I think the best way to deal with this is for Indonesia to take a look at the best practice example. The World Bank produced a list of countries and ranked the countries in the world in terms of ease of doing business. And every year, for the last 5 years, Singapore, New Zealand, and Hong Kong always among the top 3. And they have found a new way how to do ease of doing business. And the best way to do it in Indonesia is to take the best of breed. You can type on ChatGPT today. If you get the paid version, you type in there, tell me the best practice example of Hong Kong, Singapore, and New Zealand, put them into the best way in which you can remove the rigidities and structural limitations in Indonesia. It will give it to you the answer in 30 minutes. Right from how to register a company, how to get cross-border trade, how to pay taxes, how to get approval for construction. There are 10 rulers, the 10 parameters based on the ease of doing business. And do not try to improve from where you are today. Because if you improve from where you are today, it takes too long. It's not fast. But you take the best from Indonesia, best from Singapore, best from New Zealand, best from Hong Kong. Ask ChatGPT to give you the best of breed. It will give it to you in 30 minutes. After you did it in 30 minutes, you then get representative from government, relevant ministries, representative from the private sector, from the NGO, put them in the lab and gave them the challenge. This is what the best of breed from the top 3 countries. Can you take this and adapt it to the local context in Indonesia? Find the answers to do the adaptation within 6 weeks. You will get the answer. You don't need 6 months to do this. And then I think in a very short time, Indonesia will leapfrog to join the ranks of the top 3.
Interesting.
And frankly speaking, it's not academic. This is not theoretical. This is very simple. I can tell you today, if you look where Indonesia is ranked in the world on each of the 10 parameters that the World Bank put, you will find where the gaps are. Even paying taxes, it's very difficult. The way to pay taxes is also difficult. The way to get approval to do construction work in Indonesia is also difficult. But if you see how they do it in Singapore, how they do in New Zealand, and how they do in Hong Kong, suddenly you will find all the investment coming into the country will go through a fast track. They will move very fast. And more importantly, you will then reduce corruption. Because now no longer, if you have so many processes, the opportunity for corruption exists in what I call regulatory corruption. You can remove regulatory corruption by removing so much of the structural processes that are hindering development of the country. That's a very good question, but I must say I have failed in trying to convince my government to do this before. And I wish I had succeeded, and if I succeeded, I think Malaysia would have jumped very, very far. When I started, we were ranked number 20, number 40 in the ease of doing business. By the time I finished, we jumped to number 12. But we didn't jump to number 2 or number 3. Because we were trying to improve from where we were. And it will take so long to go do it. But I think if we took a frontier approach, which is a leapfrog approach, we would have been able to jump to number 1 or number 2. And we would have even more investment coming into the country. And we would have less corruption as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Dato'. For the next question, I will invite from panel, Pak Asep. Are you joined in the panel?
Yeah, I'm joined. Thank you,
Okay,
Pak Eric.
please, Pak Asep, for your question.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Sri Idris, for your question. That's very good presentation, and I'm wondering to ask some question. You know that the energy transition, running the energy transition, there's many challenges. So they have to manage many projects and also fostering collaboration, many stakeholders. So what capacity they need for leader to run the energy transition, and then the second also the energy transition, as we know that need secure funding. So I want to ask and then probably learn from Malaysia that probably the SWF, the Hasanah National Bird involved in the energy transition, as we know that Indonesia also have Danantara. So I think we can learn how SWF involved in the energy transition in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let me return to Malaysia and I come back to Indonesia in the case of energy transition. Both countries have produced a roadmap on energy transition. And in this roadmap, they are both very ambitious, very big targets, impossible targets. That's good. Both countries have not taken a pragmatic 8-step process. And I have very little confidence that we will achieve the target. Very little confidence because they're very high level.
Yeah.
If you ask today, how many projects are on the ground that are implemented today to achieve those targets that are given there? And when are they achieving them? What's the size of the contribution to the targets? Then you will have a problem with it. So my answer to your question is, you need to have 1 day workshop. 1 day, not 2. 1 day will need to involve your president, the minister in charge, and all the CEOs of the state-owned enterprises and the private sector. They must come in a room to agree, this is the energy transition. What are the projects that you think you're going to contribute? Then step 2 is run the labs.
Yeah.
And all the guys who have projects to contribute towards an energy transition, they will send their representative. So if Pertamina have 5 projects that will contribute towards it, they will send their representative inside the lab. If your what's the equivalent of your tenaga, your energy, your company that provide electricity in
PLN.
PLN, yes.
And they need to come in. The PLM need to come in, and you need to ask them, how many projects in PLM are you going to contribute to implement? And when you discuss in 6 weeks lab, we have all the relevant government agencies inside the lab. If PLM needs approval to do new power plants, then all the representatives from the government to give the approval are also in the labs. And if they need a change in Parliament for any bills and any law, the Attorney General Chambers representative, the lawyers are also in the lab, drafting the new bill in Parliament, so that all the changes have to be made. For example, if you want to introduce a new charge called feed-in tariff, you need to get agreement of the cabinet for the new feed-in tariff. And that comes from the lab. So, Brother Asep, I guarantee you, if you run a lab for 6 weeks, you will find the answers. You don't need 6 months. We've done this. I guarantee you will find the answers. But you have to begin with the first one, call the workshop, 1 day workshop. Prabowo must be there. The Minister of Energy must be there. And all the other ministers relevant to that need to be there. And also the CEOs of all the state-owned enterprises in oil and gas, and the CEOs of all the private companies in oil and gas need to come into the workshop. Then only you will get it moving. Why is that number 1 important? Because if you run the labs without number 1, you don't have the budget.
Yes.
You don't have the approval later on. Because you see, everything you need budget, as you rightly pointed out. If you run the labs and they need incentives from the government, they need tax, etc., they need all sorts of things they needed. Then you go back to the government and the government says, I don't have money to do it. The reason why the lab can only follow up to step 1 is because now you have the president fully supportive of it. Now you have the entire CEOs of all the private companies on oil and gas, all the CEOs of state-owned enterprises in the oil sector, they are also in agreement. That is how you get leadership approval. Then you have resources, then you have the budget, then you can move forward. is very important. Step 1 and step 2. I guarantee you, if you run the labs, in 6 weeks, you will find the answers for energy transition. You don't need 6 months.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Yeah, Datuk. Yeah, I think it's the commitment, the high level commitment. I think it's very important.
Very
Yeah,
important.
yeah, very important. Yeah, I agree. Absolutely agree. So about the securing the funding.
Yeah.
Yeah, yes, as you said, if the government, the high level government has agreed to the budget, I think the commitment is very important.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. Thank you, Datuk.
Because
Thank
I
you.
told you
Next,
before, how much money you require to do it in Indonesia. You know, the estimate coming from Bappenas, from the Ministry of National Development, the estimates for Indonesia, you need US dollars 200 billion per year to do the energy transition, to achieve it per year until the year 2030. After 2030, until the year 2060, you need US dollars 1 trillion per year. Where is the money going to come from? That is why it's very important that this conversation needs to be really founded on projects, facts, and realities. That is why it's very, very important to nail this down now, because if you need to do that, as I said, money does not grow on trees. So there's only 2 ways to do this. If the government wants to reduce the amount of money it spends on it, it needs to unleash the private sector. The private sector must invest. But for the private sector to invest, they will say, if I invest, you must give me the approval. You must give me the incentive. But if you take too long, I cannot do it. That's why the labs, very important, it resolve all these issues.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you again.
Okay,
Terima
thank
kasih,
you,
Pak
Pak
Erick.
Asep. We jump to the Q&A box. I will read one question. How can a country, how can we adopt the principle of transformational leadership within the government bureaucracy, which often has complex structures, rules, and procedure, yet also possess human resources that are not as robust as those in a private sector?
Yeah. There are 2 ways to do it.
Mhm.
The first way to do it is to begin by having a discussion with Prabowo. Your president need to be convinced about 2 things. That he must behave in a manner that's transformational in his exercise of leadership. That he shouldn't focus on doing firefighting. Because doing firefighting is a very busy activity. You end up doing firefighting, all the problems that exist there, you can do that. And before long, you realize that you have been very busy for the whole 5 years. And another 5 years, 10 years is over. You have not fundamentally transformed the government and the country because you've been very busy with firefighting. So people who avoid firefighting are people who are very clear about true north. And I have listened to your president. He's very clear about the true north. That's why he came with the agenda. It's very clear. But the problem now is the new way of working. He needs to introduce a new way of working in the civil service. If you continue to do an old way of working, you cannot achieve the transformation. Even if the president exercises transformational leadership, he's already talked about food security. He's already talked about energy transition. But where is the detailed work that everybody is coming on food security? For example, if you ran a lab tomorrow on food security, you put everybody inside there who are involved in food security. There are a few key recommendations, a few things that you will find. For every item that you consume on food in Indonesia, you will find certain items you have competitive advantage over other countries. Take an example, chicken. If you have a competitive advantage, for rearing chicken and for commercializing chicken cheaper than all the other neighboring countries in ASEAN, including Malaysia and Thailand, etc. And then that's called a competitive advantage for you. If, for example, you do not have competitive advantage on dairy farming, and that New Zealand will produce much better milk, much better cheese, you should not encourage people to go into dairy farming in Indonesia. What you can do is to start buying pieces of land in other countries, investing in those countries that have competitive advantage, or become joint ventures of those companies. Then you can import the product cheaper. And these are an example. I gave you two examples, very contrasting example. One is you can produce more. If you think you are very good in chicken, in rice farming, then those are the areas you need to focus on. But if the other areas you're not very good in, you don't try to do it yourself because you are more expensive. You better well import it. If you are going to reduce your foreign exchange by importing a lot of dairy, it's better you go into joint ventures. Indonesian companies can go and own companies in New Zealand. Many of them are publicly listed. You can buy stakes in them. You can own them. They can import. They have security for milk and dairy farming. Maybe go to and buy big stakes in Argentina, for example. I'm just giving you two contrasting examples. But my point is, if you get the best and brightest people to think about this in 6 weeks, you'll find the answers. You can go through everything from onion to sugar to milk to bread to rice. You ask only the question, do you have competitive advantage in those products? Answer yes or no. And if you don't have competitive advantage, for you to produce it yourself, it's going to be very costly for the country. It's better you import. And so this is the key. And so I think when you look at security as an issue, even if you are importing it from one country, that is also a problem, because if you have a problem with that country and that country is fragile, then you still need to import it. So you need to open the sources for importation to more than one country, to 3 or 4 countries. But you'll find competitive bidding is another one. And when you import them, one of the ways to solve the problem of food security is if you open up a food trading arm for Indonesia, you can then have volume discounts. So that you import one company that imports sugar, one company that imports flour, one company that imports cooking oil, or you don't import cooking oil, most cooking oil is oil palm. I mean, for dairy. But you have to deal with competition with the existing companies that import them. Because today, if you have many, many importers involved, you don't have volume discounts. You cannot reduce the cost of living through that importation. So I fundamentally believe if you create a national trading company for food security, you can bring volume discount down. You can bring volume, and you bring the discount, the prices will come much lower. Then you have much cheaper prices of products. But there are fundamental issues associated. So to my mind, you can run a lab for food security concurrently with the energy security, concurrently in 6 weeks. You can nail them in 6 weeks. You don't need 6 months.
Okay, well, thank you for your answer. Now we are going back to the panel. Mrs. Dinar, are you on the panel? Mrs. Dinar?
Yes.
Okay,
Okay.
your turn.
Okay. Good morning, Pak Dato.
Good morning.
Hi, my name is Dinar. It's truly a privilege to have you with us, and I'm personally very grateful that I can attend to this event and listen to your invaluable experiences. I would like to ask about how to build a system management. Sometimes we try to build a solid management system and we feel like we are working alone. And how to build a system that can encourage motivation to our teams and then to make their involve and feeling grow or have a motivation to grow and then take a part to the mission without we have to supervise or without we have to as the progress every time. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, there are two ways to do that. One is the slow way how to do it, the fast way how to do it. The slow way how to do it is the traditional approach where you put people through training. You run training courses for them and how to motivational on leadership, you run that. That will take a long time to get results. The second approach is the one that I am advocating. Don't focus on training. Focus on developing their capabilities on the job. That is what I call the lab. On the job learning. That's the fastest way for people to learn. So when people go through the lab in 6 weeks, it's incredible the amount of learning that people get from it. It's on the job learning is the quickest way how to learn. During the pandemic, I like to play guitar. And so I had nothing to do during the pandemic. So I then told myself, if I want to make a guitar, why don't I learn how to build a guitar on my own through YouTube? I could go to classes, I could attend a class how to make the guitar. But if I wanted to do it by myself, let me start to build a guitar, learning from YouTube and learning by doing. During the pandemic, I managed to make 16 guitars on my own. I've never been to any class how to make guitars. And so I know how to build them. I know how to paint them. I know how to cut the wood. I know how to put the pickup. I know how to measure the instrument. So I'm quite good at doing it now. My point was this. If you want to get people to learn quickly, you have to do applied learning, not classroom learning, because classroom learning takes too long to do it. There is one professor in Harvard, Ricardo Hausman. In many of his theories, he believes countries can develop fastest if they bring in foreign talents. America became the single biggest economy in the world. How did they become that? By bringing foreign talents. It made out from people from America that came there. How did New Zealand grow foreign talents? How did Singapore grow foreign talents? Singapore opened the doors to the best and the brightest people to live in Singapore. How did Australia grow to become what it is today? Foreign talents. The Aborigines who live in Singapore, in Australia, wouldn't have done it. So the quickest way is to bring foreign talents where you are lacking in skills. So that in the meantime, you then have the time to develop and grow your own talents. It will take 20 years, 30 years to develop your own talents. Then you eventually replace the foreign talents. That is how you then do it. But Ricardo Hausman says the quickest way to get countries to develop, to leapfrog, is to bring foreign talents. That's why migration of talents is actually very important, but they must come through the front door, not through the back door. Only people that you really need to develop the country. So I return back to the answer to the question, how to develop talents within an organization. There are two ways. The slow way how to do it. The traditional way is to focus on training people through a classroom, but that takes too long. But if you want a quick results, big, fast results, you follow the 8-step process. Then you get results in 6 weeks. You get improvement. You get change in culture. 3 years of doing this, you have a transformation happening within the organization. Because then people have a new way of working. a new culture will emerge, sense of urgency is there, people will begin to feel proud of their job. Then you grow leaders in the process. You'll find tremendous growth in leadership that takes place when people are learning to take pride in their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Shah.
Dato, this is continue the question from Mrs. Gina. How if we, let's say, combine the conventional model, as you mentioned, training in the class with the labs? We know that some company, they have an internship program. Is that part of the kind of a lab model as well? So
Yeah,
they
yeah.
learning by doing.
Yeah, the internship model has its good thing to it, that it has its limitation. Let me say what is good and what's the main limitation of the internship model as an example. The internship model runs in solo. That means the individual is going out there to learn how to do it. The problem is the individual has limitation.
Yeah.
The lab approach is different because there are many, many people inside the room there. So the individual can see a problem, can see the solution, but cannot see other solutions that other people can see. So when you have 50 people in the room, then you have 50 people giving ideas and solutions to it, as opposed to one person. So if you have one person, let's say if I go and become an intern in a company, I'm solo, I'm giving an answer. So the idea of individuality as opposed to power of many. The lab is a power of many. So that's why you get many people coming out with solutions. The richness of it. I don't know if you heard about the blind spot idea. The blind spot idea is every person has what I know, what I don't know. Another person has what I know, what I don't know. If the two of us come together, what I know, maybe the person doesn't know. Now we put what he knows, I don't know. But the two of us coming together, it enlarges the scope of what we both know. I am learning from him because what he knows is what I don't know. When we put it together, my scope of learning enhances tremendously because I now am learning. So if there are 50 people inside there, many of things I don't know, many of them they know. So that suddenly in 6 weeks, my learning has enhanced 50 times based on the contribution from the other 50 people that brought to me new perspective and new ideas that people are coming through. That is why I believe in the power of the lab, because now you have the power of many as opposed to the power of individual operating in silo. Currently, the current way of working is we work in silo. This is what you do in Indonesia, in Malaysia. Traditional way, we set task force. We set the task force. There's a steering committee. There's a working committee. And then they meet. Working committee meet every month. The steering committee meet every quarter. You know what do they do? All those guys in the working committee, they have their normal job. They're busy doing their normal job. They only spend 1 hour doing this thing. And they are just busy doing their normal job. So the amount of quality effort that they put in doing it. And when you meet in the meeting, you know what they do? They spend a whole hour talking about the minutes of the last meeting. They waste their time looking at minutes. Nobody is really, and then even before the meeting, they start calling one another to write report. And you know, it is such an inefficient way of operating. And the task force, we make recommendation, they send letters to one another. One ministry send a letter to another ministry. 1 month later, the ministry then reply to that ministry. 2 months later, then they reply to them. They keep replying to them. When the lab, there's no more sending letters. They're all together in the room. There's no email going between them. They're all together sitting there to work together. That is how you then create a new culture. New capability will grow.
Okay, I got a point. Dato, as we approach the end of our session, we have the opportunity for one last question. I will invite Pak Darius Agung. Are you on panel?
Already.
Okay,
Hello,
please,
Pak
Pak
Eric.
Darius Agung. This is the last question, please.
Okay. Thank you for the opportunity. Dato, let me introduce myself first. I work as in a small office in a training area. So have a challenging to make to raising the performance from this organization. I think you have a really interesting methodology here, which X way how to have a big fast result. Yeah. My question is about the how fast is it is a correlation between the we set the target or that you call true north with the how fast we can achieve the target it is. And I think this methodology also suitable with my organization, in a only small organization, but I think this methodology must be powerful because it's very well tested in the big organization, also in the country policymaker. That's my question, Dato.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. To the question of how fast, the word how fast is relative. And I give you an example. When you set a target for your organization, you will immediately discover that you have been achieving this level of performance in the past. The best thing for you to do is how fast you can achieve that, asking the question, which company in the world do the same thing as you do, and how fast do they do it? That is the question that you need to ask. Which company in the world does similar thing as you do, and how fast do they do it? That is the question. And so if you say you do the same thing over 3 years, if they do it in 6 months, you then ask the question, what are they doing in 6 months that caused them to do it in 6 months? That is very, very important. For example, in Malaysia, if you want to get construction permit to build a hotel in Malaysia, you want to build a hotel, you have to go through a pre-approval, building approval. You get to have all sorts of approval for doing it. You have to get the fire brigade approval, you have the water approval, the land approval, all the approval. It can easily take you 1 year to 1.5 years to get approval. If I then ask the question, how long does it take for Singapore, in Hong Kong, in New Zealand to get the construction permit? They do it in less than 1 week. That is the speed. But if you are not prepared to make the changes in your systems, in your process, you cannot do it in 1 week. You know, in Dubai, for example, they don't have toll gates on the highways in Dubai because they have multi-lane free flow system. So when you drive a car in Dubai, there are designated cameras that will pick your car that you have traveled the highway. There is no toll into it. If you have a toll gate, I think in Indonesia you have tolls like in Malaysia, the jam is taking place in the toll. But if you want people no jams in the toll, you have to follow what the Dubai people do. You have to remove the barrier. You have to change the process. You have to have readers. What the readers do is that if you pass the toll, the reader will recognize the number of your car, and the system, the back system, know your account number. It will deduct directly from your account to pay for the toll that you've just paid. But that is a massive change in process to go and do it. And if you beat a traffic light in Dubai, for example, immediately there's an alert on your phone to say that you have a traffic offense and then you immediately had a beep. The next beep is they have deducted your bank account. That is automated. That is fast. That is fast. So, but it requires a change in process. If you want to do it immediately, instantaneously, you can do it, but you must now change the process. Change the process. They must remove the toll highways, the barrier on the highway. You must now have the bank account of all the guys there. You have a system to be able to read the plate number of the car. You have to know all the account numbers of those people who are now registering their car. You must have the permission for them to deduct their salary or their bank account. These are fundamental rules. By the way, why I'm telling you this is because I'm consulting our company in Malaysia called Plus. The question is, can they then adapt the system in Dubai to do it? I said, yes, of course you can, but these are the steps you need to take. So the question to you now is that speed is relative. So if you want to have that speed, you ask the question, who is the fastest in the world? In this case, we know it's Dubai. But what are they doing? Then you must know what they're doing. And if you want to achieve it, you have to do all that.
Yeah.
That clear, David?
Yeah, very very clear, Dato. We are now in the era of we are growing, but I think we are not very slowly. This is my important of thinking in the future how make it fast, more fast.
I tell you one example. When I was a minister, there was everybody complaining in Malaysia. Sometime to get a new passport, a passport renewal, a new passport, it will take 2 months. To renew your identity card, it will take about 1 month. To renew driving license, also 1 month. We decided that we wanted to do this in 1 day. If you want to improve, you get your driving license 1 hour. So we then created what is called urban transformation centers. Today, you can get a completely new license, driving license renewed in 1 hour. You can get your entire passport, totally new passport in 1 day. In fact, 1 hour you can. And that's a fundamental change in our systems, in our processes. Everything has to change. And if you don't change that, it cannot work. So, for example, I can tell you, this one was completely outside in my mind. One of the officers in the government said, if we bring the new system, even if we automate it, as long as the officers who are dealing with the customers are in the office of the government, near the bosses, it will never be 1 hour. I said, why? Because although it is a system that's automated, the bosses will ask the secretary, please print them in a hard copy and put them on my table so I can approve them manually. Because the bosses don't want to go into the system and key. They will ask them to print. But the bosses are not in their office the whole time. They are traveling with the minister. They are in Malaysia, they are in Singapore. They come 1 week later, then they only approve it. It cannot work like that. So that's why what we did was we took all the people who are supposed to, the officers who were supposed to take it, we took them away from the government office. We set up the office at the bus station, at the terminal. The only way that the boss can approve it, he must go online. He must go online because the Urban Transformation Center is not in the government office. They are now where the people are, at the bus station, at the bus terminal, where thousands of people are gathered. And because of that, then they cannot print it and send it to the secretary and put it on the table. The officers must key in and log it in. And we also said, we name the people who are taking more than 1 hour to get the approval by name. And when the name is put out there, the Prime Minister says, oh, Mr. A, you are taking 5 hours to approve it. Why are you doing it 5 hours? So when you start doing this, the change happened. So Malaysia today, you can get completely new driving license, completely new passport, completely new IC. All of that can be done within an hour.
Okay,
That's called speed, brother, speed.
yeah, very interesting and insightful. Thank
Oh,
you,
by the way,
Dato'.
last time people pay money under the counter, bribe. Now no more bribe.
Yeah.
Because it's all automatic.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you very much,
you.
Dato'.
Thank you,
Thank you, Pak
Mr.
Eric.
Agung. Dato', ladies and gentlemen, our time for this incredible discussion is drawing to a close. I know there are many questions that in Q&A box still not answered. There are many interesting things that audience want to elaborate more. But because the time is over, before we conclude, maybe I'm not summarize. I'm not trying to summarize, but I will highlight some golden point from that. First, I noticed this. To deliver big fast result, leader must dare to play the game of impossible. And then second, execution is a discipline methodology. And the last one, and this is the most important, I think, transformation is not about beautiful plan on the paper, but about the courage to execute, to do unpopular things, to maintain an uncompromised focus on delivery, and so on. That is 3 points that I highlight from presentation Dato'. And Dato', on behalf of the entire family, Ministry Energy and Mineral Resources, we extend our deepest gratitude. The wisdom and the energy you have shared with us today are truly invaluable. And for those who wish to continue learning from Dato' Idris, you also can, audience can actively maybe come join to Mr. Dato' podcast, The Game of Impossible. I encourage you all to look it up on YouTube and other platform. Many thanks also to our wonderful audience for your active participation. I hope this session has provided us all with the inspiration and tools to become transformational leader in our respective roles. I'm Eric, signing off. Thank you and have a great day for all. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Back to our master ceremony, Diva, please.
Once again, thank you, Dato, for sharing such transformative perspectives, how transformational leaderships can turn the impossible into achievable results. And thank you, Pak Eric, for guiding a rich and engaging discussion. The points shared today offer not only valuable lessons, but also a refined understanding of transformational leadership that will continue to inspire meaningful progress within our ministry. Ladies and gentlemen, before we officially conclude this event, we kindly ask all panelists to remain in the room and turn on the camera for a group photo session with our speaker and moderator as a part of today's documentation. Okay. We will take the picture on the count of 3. Bapak Ibu silakan dinyalakan kameranya. Okay, we will take the picture on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3, smile. Okay, thank you everyone. On behalf of the Human Resources Development Center, we extend our sincere gratitude to Dato' Sri Idris Jalla, Pak Eric, and also all participants for contributing to today's seminar. We hope the insights shared today will spark future initiatives, strengthen collaboration, and inspire continued dialogue. Thank you all for your presence and participation. We wish you a pleasant day ahead. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam.
Thanks for Datuk. We'll see you again.
Thank you, Datuk.
Other courses.
All the best.
Thank you. All right.
Thank you for having me. Bye.
Right. Thank you.
Terima kasih Pak Kaban, Pak
Terima
Kapus.
kasih. Izin live.
Izin.